They call it Halloween, but long before costumes, candy, and plastic skeletons, this night was sacred, a threshold between worlds, a night when fire met shadow, and the living welcomed the dead home. This was Samhain, the ancient Celtic New Year, and its real story will change the way you see life, death, and everything in between. Welcome to Vortex Tribe, where we journey into the heart of consciousness, energy, and universal truths. Over 2,000 years ago, the Celts ended their year not in spring, but in darkness, the turning of the sun. They called it Samhain, meaning summer's end. It marked the close of harvest, the dying of light, and the beginning of the great inward season, winter. They believed this was the moment when the veil between worlds grew thin. The spirits of ancestors could cross the threshold, not to haunt, but to visit. So fires were lit on every hilltop to guide them home. Feasts were laid, and a seat was left open at the table. Bread, mead, and honey were offered at the door, for loved ones unseen but deeply remembered. Samhain wasn't about fear. It was about reverence, a recognition that death and life are two breaths of the same wind. On this night, the Druids, guardians of law and earth wisdom, studied the flames and the stars, listening for messages of what was to come. It was a time of prophecy, of dreams that spoke truth, and of rituals that honored the unseen forces shaping the year ahead. They carried home embers from the sacred bonfire, to reignite their own hearths with renewed protection. To them, every flame was a promise. Light would always return, even through the deepest dark. Centuries later, as Christianity spread through the Celtic lands, Samhain was woven into a new holy day. All Hallows' Eve, the night before All Saints' Day. The old rituals of remembrance weren't erased, but their meaning slowly changed. Where the Celts once saw death as a doorway, the Church spoke instead of heaven and hell, recasting spirits of the departed as souls in need of prayer and the unseen world through the language of sin and salvation. The ancient gods of hearth and harvest didn't vanish. They softened into saints and local spirits. Brigid, the fire goddess, became Saint Brigid of Kildare. Lugh, the radiant god of skill, lived on in stories of archangels and craftsmen. What had been sacred harmony with nature was now retold as superstition. Ancestor offerings, renamed as prayer for the dead, divination and dream work labeled witchcraft. Yet beneath those layers of doctrine, the pulse of Samhain still beat quietly, a truth too ancient to be forgotten. But truth doesn't die. It only sleeps, waiting to be remembered. When you carve a pumpkin, you're echoing a tradition far older than Halloween. Long before pumpkins crossed the sea, the Celts carved lanterns from turnips and beets, their glow meant to ward off wandering or mischievous spirits. On the night when the veil between worlds grew thin, those eerie marshlights people once saw, the will-o'-the-wisps, were said to be lost souls, flickering in the dark, luring travelers astray. Science now tells us they were gases from the earth igniting in the night. But to the ancient mind, they were the restless between realms. Over centuries, legend merged with light, and the story of Stingy Jack was born. A soul condemned to roam with only a glowing ember. Inside, a carved turnip for a lantern. That's how the jack-o'-lantern came to be. So when you light your pumpkin tonight, you're not just decorating, you're participating in an echo of the old ways, a symbol of protection, remembrance, and renewal. You're rekindling the ancient fire that once linked the living and the dead. Tonight, stand in the quiet. Light a single flame. Speak their names, not to summon fear, but to remember that their love still moves through your veins. You are not separate from the dead. You are their continuation, the living flame of all who came before. If this stirred something ancient in you, share it, so more souls remember the real story. Subscribe for more educational content that helps to raise our collective consciousness. Until next time.